Hello, and welcome to Real Talk with Rachel. Today I'm examining what abuse looks like in childhood. I just finished the book Free Lunch by Rex Ogle. I generally don't read book reviews, but every now and then I get curious about what people think about books I've read. This was one of those books. It's a book written for middle grade students, around ages 10 to 14 probably, that tells the story of a boy whose mother and stepfather are both verbally and physically abusive. It's a memoir. I was curious about what people were saying about how honestly Ogle looks at abuse. So I went looking for reviews on Goodreads. I read several that rated the book poorly because Ogle did not provide a list of resources for children who are going through the same circumstances. And I found myself thinking, resources? Really? That's not actually as helpful as you might think. Because here's the thing. When you're a 12-year-old kid, as Ogle was in the story, and you live in a situation where verbal and physical abuse is happening on a regular basis, you're not going to tell anyone. There are several reasons for this. But before I share them, I want to say I am only speaking about physical and verbal abuse. First, kids don't talk about these things. So kids in those situations might not even know it's wrong. I mean, they'll feel like something is wrong, but they're never going to ask their friends, does your parent hit you or ridicule you or belittle you? Because what if the answer is no? That means, one, you're the only one getting hit or ridiculed or belittled. Two, there's probably a reason you're getting hit or ridiculed or belittled, and it probably has something to do with you. And three, that probably means there's something wrong with you. Adolescence is a very tumultuous time. You're already going through puberty, your body changing in all these ways that make you uncomfortable. You're keenly aware of how different you are from others, and you don't want yet another confirmation. I wrote a story about a girl whose dad isn't very nice to her. Several reviews of my book mention the abuse. It never crossed my mind as a kid that this was abuse. I still have trouble wrapping my mind around it because when I was a kid, I didn't know any different. I internalized some awful words and actions, and I never once thought of it as abuse. Would I do what was done to me as a child to my own children? Absolutely not. But we were living in a different time when I was a kid. We know more today, but even still, there are kids who have no idea the wrongness of their situation. So if kids don't know this kind of treatment is unusual among their peers, why would they speak up and tell someone? Now, you might say we can solve that problem by teaching them what's normal and what's not normal when it comes to parental treatment. But what happens after that? Say a kid has an awakening. This is not how a parent is supposed to treat a child. What then? They have a list of resources where they can get help or report their parents. But most kids know what happens after that. A child protective caseworker will visit the house, which will alert the parents that you've reported. And if the worker finds evidence of abuse, you'll likely get taken away from your parents and put in foster care, which is, to many, way scarier than continuing to live in a physically and verbally abusive situation. You may end up in a home of someone much worse than your parent. It's just not worth the risk. The enemy you know is better than the enemy you don't know. And besides that, who would you tell? What if the person you tell doesn't believe you? What if they think you're making a big deal out of nothing, and then the parent at home gets even worse because they know you told? Peace. That's what counts when you're a 12-year-old. You do everything you can to make sure you don't set off the explosion. There's another facet to this too. Kids in these situations feel ashamed or embarrassed. Even if they know it's not normal treatment, where a kid's mind automatically goes is, it's because of me. There's something wrong with me. They don't want others to know that, so they keep the secret. They suffer in silence. They're afraid, they're ashamed, they're confused. They're doing the best they can. People who haven't grown up or been in situations like that just don't understand. And it's hard to imagine the desperation. Someone said about my story, there's not a responsible adult anywhere in it, because the grandma and the mom of the main character knew her dad was verbally abusive, at the very least. and they still sent kids to him for the summer. Those are words from a person of privilege who doesn't understand single parenthood. My character's mom makes decisions because she doesn't have the means to support her kids on her own, and her ex-husband doesn't financially help out. Except for the summer, when he'll buy all their school clothes. How do you choose between your kids not having everything they need, to say nothing of what they want, and sending them with a parent you hope won't break them so they get what they need? It's an impossible choice, and you won't understand it unless you've been there. Not to mention, when divorce happens, custody agreements are set by courts. If they're not upheld, a parent who doesn't send their child to the agreed-upon visitation has to pay a hefty fine and additional court fees. Proving physical and emotional abuse isn't easy, and it's costly in court. So what's a parent to do? Another reality is, not every kid has a responsible adult in their lives. And if we fail to see that or acknowledge that reality, they go on suffering in silence. You know who are sometimes the biggest helps in situations like that? Peers. What kids can't tell adults, they can tell their friends. But if kids don't know those realities exist, how will they know to tell? Books like Ogle's and mine help kids know those difficult realities exist. For the kids who don't live in those realities, it teaches them to search for their peers who do. And it gives those living in the reality of physical and emotional abuse the courage to share. All that to say, we want to believe in the ideal. Everything will work out in the end. But most situations aren't ideal. We want to believe kids have options and agency in these kinds of situations. That's why people want those resources for kids. Tell them how to get help. Tell them where to turn. Tell them how to get out of those situations. But the fact is, many kids don't have options and agency. They just have to do the best they can in these situations. Books that show them resilient characters help them understand that they can make it too. Thanks for listening to my Real Talk. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for videos about books and writing and more videos like this. See you next time.